quite spectacular. Lovely temperature in the sun, obviously a bit cooler in the shade, and some mad people doing some rock climbing. We're waiting for the second bus, which got caught at one of the police checkpoints, and then we'll be walking down the gorge and hopefully stopping to have a look at the valley on the other side.
Especially if you haven't been up there before. So, if you want to know about the geology of what we've done, can you hear me over there? Yeah. So, when we were driving along the main road, we were driving along the Agadir lineament, which separates two major structural units of Moroccan geology. To the south of us is the Anti-Atlas Jebel Saro Paleozoic fold belt, which was formed with the closure of the Rheic Ocean. So that's a part of that great Hercynian or Armorican orogeny, yes, of which of course we have a part of that in the UK, and it makes most of the basement of Europe. Yeah. Once that surface had been largely penoplaned, there were Mesozoic sediments deposited onto it, and then the Tethys Ocean opened up, and you ended up with the northern margin of Tethys with its Mesozoic sequence, and North Africa with a distinct Mesozoic sequence, and then that closed, and that gave you the Alpine orogeny, yes? And then later on, there was a sort of, you might call it a Neotethys, the Mediterranean opened up. So we have come across this, or driven along this fault. In fact, we crossed it backwards and forwards. A few times we were driving on the Paleozoics, which generally look dark greys, but we could always see out of the right-hand side of our bus, we could see an escarpment that was made of lighter and pinky coloured strata. And so on our right side, we more or less could see an escarpment at a lower level than these mountains. We could see these mountains behind it, and that was the Akrabu limestones with the Kem group below it. Yeah. When we came into the town, we came to a set of traffic lights when we'd crossed the beautiful little oasis at the river. Very, very green it was looking today. We turned right at the traffic lights and we came up to this gorge. So we came through a sequence of folded Akrabu limestones with all of those pinkish Kem beds beneath them. And in a few places they were vertical. And that's because they've been deformed against movement between these two structural units, this Paleozoic unit and this Mesozoic unit, with some movements that are along this Agadir lineament. Those movements can be lateral, shear movements, because it's actually part of a great big transform fault in the Atlantic, but also vertical movements as well. These rocks here are Jurassic limestones, and these have actually been thrust onto the Cretaceous, probably high angle thrust where they're emerging at the surface here, probably much lower angle at some depth in here. So you can see that here they're more or less horizontal, but as you get to the thrust, up they come like that. So we're in an area of some quite intense deformation. Okay, you can see parts of the unit which have got a lot of stratigraphy in it. You can see some very massive units, and you can see some more bedded units on the top. I really am unsure about the various ages or the time frame that this massive limestone represents, but certainly the lower Jurassic and probably up to the Bathonian are in there at least. In a few places, and I noticed it when we came up through the gorge, where the limestones are rather greyish looking, you haven't got the sort of the iron staining on them, you can see quite a lot of fracturing and calcite veining in it. Okay, it's not especially good for fossils. It is especially good for scenery. You need to ask yourselves, of course, about why there is a great big gorge in here. Erosion rates, generally speaking, erosion rates where the rain and the chemical erosion is eroding your strata are slower than uplift rates in actively tectonic areas. Yeah? Sometimes an earthquake will suddenly lift the ground up 10 metres. And here is one of these areas where the ground has come up relatively quickly, so we've got mountains, but where there has been a river, and if it's following a zone of weakness, like a fault, it still cuts down really fast. And the reason is that as mountains come up very quickly, they're eroding, they're shedding sediment. The sediment is stones and boulders in the river, and because it's high, the river is flowing fast. It's a torrent mountain stream, and all of the stones and pebbles, as well as the water is dissolving the limestone, the rocks and pebbles are also grinding the way down. And so as the ground comes up fast, the river cuts down fast. And so you get these great big, narrow, deep gorges. You can get it where there aren't any faults, and you can have a meandering river system and the ground come up fast, and the meanders end up forming a deep meander cut valley. So think, for instance, of the Jurassic of southern Germany, that area that they call Franconia, which goes across Bavaria and Baden-Württemberg. You've got the Altmühltal, which is a meandering river, and actually that is cut down. And the Grand Canyon is a similar sort of thing, where the uplift rate and the erosion rate of the river system has actually kept pace. And this has happened in 4 or 5 places along the Atlas Fold Belt, where we've got these absolutely spectacular gorges, and makes for one of the most beautiful bits of scenery in the whole of North Africa.
So I'm thinking this is around 1,000 feet sheer drop. Looks like 2 lots of beachy head. Let's catch up with the team. See the Grand Restaurant Hotel Yasmina. Wonder if it has a reinforced roof.
I think that looks stable.
Just in case something came down from this 1,000-foot sheer drop. Looks like a big fault going through there. Although higher up, the gorge, the wadi, has no surface water. It's appearing here. In quite a large volume. Yeah, coming out of here on the right.
Simple systems, sedimentary rocks. You've got bedding plains, the non-conformities, very often they're all kind of like plain. And then you've got the joint pattern. There may not be any faults.
Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous.
But if you've had polyphase deformation, so if you've had, for instance, the deformation.
Classic car. So for some reason we've blocked the flow so it overflows, and then he's cut back the flow quite dramatically. some water management going on here for some reason. So the reason for the mini dams is there's a blockage as it comes into the village. The Gorge Hotel Restaurant's doing fine trade. And the gorge is through there, I hope. And because you've got a steady flow of water and a lovely green wadi, quite built up. And the mud Kasbah, Moha estimates is about 100 years old, not inhabited anymore. Maintenance being the main issue, constant maintenance required. Don't be shy, Nick.
360.
وليد ريمنا توربي الخير ونربيه ادي وربي دريمنا ونربيه يا واش قدك ويجي دريم